Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 328. We have a guest tonight that we've been trying to get on the show for a long time. He is an old friend of the show, but this is really his first time on this iteration of the Artcasters. We've had him on earlier when it was the morning show that we did with Jeff Lafferty and everything, but it's been a long time coming. Unfortunately, it's just going to be Marshall and I tonight because Josh is in Canada. And he's out there promoting his new book. We should definitely pick up. It's I was going to say 2 stories. You can probably get 2 stories on his web store and everything, and pretty much anywhere. But Jacob's Apartment is the new book that just came out from Josh that he's out there promoting. And Corey is out sick tonight, so like I said, it's just going to be Marshall and I. We were just talking before the show, and it's like we've been trying to get Marshall on the show because he's in the East Coast and he's usually has to work the next morning and everything, so it's really difficult to get him on the show. So he's sort of, I guess, on holiday right now, so he doesn't have to work tomorrow. So I said, well, let's get you on the show. And then, of course, that's the one week where no one else can make it. But it's still going to be a great show and Marshall and I have done shows like this, and we've done collabs and everything before. And it's just great. It's just going to be great to catch up with Marshall. So I guess I'll start off. I'm Scott with Circworks Art Labs. You can find me here on this YouTube channel. You can also find me at circworks.com. And just be aware that I will be launching the Kickstarter for Young and the Dead #5, plus all the previous issues. You'll be, if you don't have any of the other issues, you can be able to get them all, or you just the new issues if you're all up to date other than that new one. So that's going to launch next month. I'm prepping everything for that. So hopefully right now it's probably looking at the middle of next month. So I've still got some prep to do, but it will be, I will be talking a lot more about that. So get ready because I'm going to be promoting the heck out of that. So what about you, Marshall? What do you got going on? Anything you want to promote?
I'm just trying to get I'm working on my YouTube channel, and I'm working on a comic right now. I have it in front of me, actually. It's just a 4-page comic for the newest 9-volt anthology from the AAA artist community. So that'll be coming out soonish, where the deadline is coming up in a few days. And usually those once Peter Seckler puts it all together, it takes like maybe a month before it's out, and available. So come to Marsh Makes Comics, and
I made a mistake. I just took that out because I put .com. Actually, it's donkeyjawproductions.com. And Marsh Makes Comics on YouTube. So, and there are links to both of those in the description. So that link I put up there, if you typed it, I don't think there's a .com called Marsh Makes Comics. Sorry about that.
yeah. No, it's just the YouTube channel. So, yeah. And yeah, so I mean, if you can keep up to date there, and I'll be shooting the link out and stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of it.
All right. So usually what we do when we do the show is we give our guests a chance to choose the topic if they want. And Marshall wanted to talk about kind of remembering why you started doing your art journey, where you came from, which I thought was perfect because Marshall's one of these guys that I've known for a long time and I've been following, and he has gone through so many different iterations, whether, his actual name, the name he goes by online, his screen name, the title of his channel. And so, I mean, you've gone through all these different, whether, you have so many different interests and things that you get, you were doing the toys, you do music, you do comics, but it seems to me that, I don't know, it always seems to come back to comics. Is it something that just kind of keep driving back to, or what sparked the idea? What sparked you wanting to talk about this as a topic?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is my journey online has pretty much been a branding nightmare, and it's all my fault. And it also happened with, even when I was making music, I changed like my rap name like a million times too. So I'm just indecisive, I guess. But that being said, when it comes, it is funny that it kind of always comes back to comics, because like when it comes down to it, when I was, in high school, I was young, in my actually, I guess it wasn't my freshman year of high school, but it built up from that time. And I don't know, I was getting into the things I was getting into. Hip hop and comic books kind of was the things that I loved. And once I first finally started like buying my own comics, or at least seeing, picking, I should say picking my own comics, because my dad used to share his comics with me, like his old Superman comics and stuff like that from like the Silver Age and stuff. And I thought they were awesome, but I didn't know anything really at that time. And then, eventually I was like, oh, there's a comic store over there. Dad, could you bring me like there? I want to see what's over there. I'm
I think
just
we all have
curious,
that story.
And I went there, and like, the first, I remember I bought like two or three comics. And I know that the first one of them was Ralph Snart.
I remember I've got Ralph Snart. I've got Ralph
Yeah,
Snart.
and I at that time I was so naive. This was a little bit before even high school. I was so naive, and I'm like, I didn't know really but it was like crude, it's not really for kids. And I brought it home, and I think my mom got rid of it because she was like, this. She's like, do you really know what this stuff means? I'm like, I have no clue what it means. I just like the art. And something else that I really like the art of, and I just happen to have the cover here because I ripped it off of one of my copies. But
yeah, I've got that too.
I saw this thing on the stands in a bag, and I freaking, I personally loved the art, and I thought it was exciting. I opened it up, and I was like, this is really cool. Like, I mean, my dad had been bringing me to like see like Terminator and RoboCop and all these like awesome movies, and I'm like, yeah, this is the comic for me. So I got into that, and then I didn't really know what was going on with comics at all. I thought X-Men was cool and things like that. And eventually it was once in a while that I had a chance to go to a comic shop. And then I remember going to one. I got my mom to bring me to one, and they had like all these books from the same artist that I was like following like a little bit, in Marvel. I'm like, what is this? And this had probably already been like a year into Image Comics, and the guy told me all about it. He's like, oh, you don't know, like Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee, like they created this new company all by themselves and this and that. And I was like my dreams just came true. Like, and I'm like, holy crap, this is so cool. Like I thought, and then after that, I was just collecting everything from them, and, doing my best to get to comic shops whenever I could. And, I do remember sometime, I don't know if it was freshman year or like sophomore year, I would always be sitting there trying to draw my own comics, this really crazy, stupid characters with bad anatomy. I still have bad anatomy, I think, but, but that being said, like, I would just sit there and draw. And there was just one day I'm sitting there drawing, listening to, I think it was like Tribe Called Quest, some hip hop music or something. And I'm just like, this is what I want to do as a career. Like people do this as a career, right? Like, because when you're a kid, how many times when you were a kid did like some old uncle or aunt or somebody like come up to you and be like, what do you want to be when you grow up and stuff? And I was always like, I don't know, fireman, I don't know, like I just kind of made something up. But then it does make you think about it. And I was like, as I was sitting there, I'm like, this is what I want to do. People do this for a living, like, and I'm like, if other people can, why can't I? And so that was when the spark happened, when I'm like, I need to do comics and stuff. And then I got so distracted by hip hop that I ended up going in the music direction for a long time, many years. And then finally, I guess it's probably like 10 years ago now, somewhere around then, I stumbled across podcasts. I had an iPod that's ancient nowadays, but I stumbled across podcasts, and I was like, well, this is cool. Let me see if there's something about comics. And apparently there was a couple things about comics. I think I stumbled on some stuff from Javier Hernandez. He was doing a podcast, and then I stumbled across the Mini
Hobby
Comics
Land,
Dump Truck
right?
podcast. There was like this really it was really rough like back then, but it was Kevin Cross. It was the first time I ever heard Kevin Cross talking about mini comics, which I didn't even know much about mini comics at that point, but I had a little introduction. But it was kind of funny because I remember when I first heard Kevin Cross on this podcast, I'm like, this guy.
Are you talking about the big illustration party time with
No,
Josh?
he had like back then they had Talk Shoe, and
yeah, I
they
remember
just
Talk
like
Shoe,
had a bunch of different podcasts, like, and he had like, I know he had the illustration party time, but I wasn't like privy to that yet.
Okay.
I was just searching around, and I think I heard about it from one of Javier's podcasts, and so I went to the Mini Comics Dump Truck one, and it was Kevin Cross talking about mini comics. And it's funny because back then he was still very new to doing podcasts, so he kind of had this way of talking where he was like, he kind of would say a little bit and then stop, say a little bit and then like the way he talked, I thought it was fun. I was like, I don't know if I can listen to this guy. But he was saying stuff that I was interested in. And then eventually I found out about Art and Story podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Jersey Joe's, Mark Rudolph, they're like talking my language. Like, it's awesome. I loved it. And then Kevin Cross came onto that. And at that point, they had all gotten much better at this talking podcast thing that was brand new stuff for everybody, and it was just such a great podcast. I mean, everything was like the big this, the big that, the big that, like the title names.
Yeah.
Like,
I wish we could still access that.
I know.
I wish it was still, it's still, so much of that stuff still holds up, and it's great. I don't know if Jersey or somebody has those episodes recorded somewhere, because I would pay for that if they could put it all on on like a disc or something, or a thumb drive or something, or just download it. I would pay for that.
They used to have it all archived on a site, but
yeah,
I've tried to go back, and part of it was there and part of it wasn't, and unfortunately I think it's kind of lost. But but man, I mean, especially towards the end, like they kept ramping up the production, and then they had like the Christmas specials and stuff, and they were like full out like productions and stuff, and it was just so fun. And and you and I obviously know, because we were both in the audience of that. They finally did a couple, they did that kind of behind the scenes stuff where you had to pay a little bit, and Kevin started the Mini Comics Dump Truck. There was a few other like kind of participatory things, and for that first Mini Comics Dump Truck, I'm like, yeah, I'm in, let's do this. And that's when I think you did you just said it, like the
Young and the Dead. Yeah.
What did you say?
Young and the Dead.
Young and the Dead. I keep wanting to say Dawn of the Dead, Shaun of the Dead, and I know so Young and the Dead. So that's when you first did your Young and the Dead, and that's when I first did Cliff. And it was like, I finally did my first comic. You, I think, already had some comics in the bag before that, but like I was like, I finally did my first comic, and then we received everybody else's, and I mean, Scott, yours like stood out. I think a lot of them stood out. Yours definitely stood out because you did like that special like cutout thing and all that stuff. And
not only that, but I just got so into it that the 8-page comic became a full comic.
Yeah.
but yeah, it was a great motivator. That was just, that was Mini Comics Dump Truck was great. And just getting I still have all those mini comics, and we'll get into mini comics because we'll talk about, I mean, if you do a YouTube search on mini comics, Marshall's going to come up number one search. I mean, he's got a video that's got, I mean, a year from now, maybe you might hit 1 million million views on that thing. It's getting up there. Wow.
I keep checking back to see, like, have I gotten to 1 million yet on that? Because that's crazy. That's just insane.
Yeah.
But I get comments on that video every single day,
Oh yeah.
And
it's a great
fun
video
to watch.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost, it's like you're the mini comics guy. It's possible I might be the second searched. Those mini comics videos. I think they definitely did well for you. I know mine do pretty well. I think I've got a mini comics video that's got like at least 100,000 views. But yeah, I think because it's such a great entry point for people, you know. And you know, I've talked a lot about that, just like what you're doing for the anthology, just like a 4-page story. And it's just a great entry point for comics. And that was kind of both of our entry point. I mean, I took that a step further and did a full comic because I'm nuts. But if it wasn't, but I didn't start out I just started out, I'm going to do a mini comic, like 8 pages. And I just think that's a really good goal to shoot for if you're first starting those out. And mini comics are so fun just because they're, like you said. I mean, it's a way to add some, like a tactile feel to comics, like a DIY aspect to it, and you can do so much you want because there's such a low, print run, and it's, you do it whether it's on a photocopier or whatever, but you can kind of cut things out and do all kinds of crazy stuff. I remember, what was her name? Sarah. I'm trying to remember her last name. Cricket Press, I think.
Yeah, they did some really cool stuff.
She did like screen printing, and she did, and then she printed some on. I can't remember her last name, but she did some printing on vellum. Like she had a ghost story, and the ghost was on vellum, so you could see through. I mean, just creative stuff like that. That was really, really inspiring to get all those comics back and to see how different people approached it and everything. So, man,
So, I was really impressed by a lot of the people's comics, and then that's when we all first got Monkey Mod too.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So that was cool too.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of great just to kind of go back and kind of relive that history. But I mean, there's, a lot of, I'm sure people in the chat, this is all kind of news to them, but it was, and there's other artist communities and things. And it's just, it's cool to see how things evolve and break off from, just finding, me from being a fan of Kevin's to then hosting a show with Kevin and getting introduced to Jeff Lafferty and us starting, this Artcast show, which in the beginning, that's who it was. It was us 3 on this. And then they're like we talked about, there are previous iterations, and Jeff's, after this show, he'll have his other, Artcasters going on too. So a lot of that still kind of, it's changed and evolved. I mean, and then you've evolved too. I mean, you started this AAA Discord, which is it's like a big thing right now. I don't know if how involved you still are. Obviously you're still working on the, the anthologies and everything, but, to see where that was, how that kind of started off and everything, it's just kind of cool to see all these little different offshoots and everything, and kind of get a little history lesson of where kind of it all began, which was kind of going back to, Big Illustration Party Time, which was, my co-host Josh and Kevin Cross. So yeah, it's really cool to see that. And some of those people, I wish they were still doing content. I would love to know what Mark Rudolph's up to, because I mean, that dynamic between him and Jersey, and then when Kevin came in, it was just an entertaining show.
They had great chemistry, for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted that show to go on forever, but
yeah,
back then it seemed like podcasts would go on forever, but when it did end, and after I started to see that some of these things will actually end eventually, which obviously they would, but I was like, okay, I see, now I just appreciate the time for what it was. But I still miss that show, but it's still, I mean, if I want to get my dose of Jersey, I just go on to the Lean Into Art podcast.
Yeah, Jersey's still putting out content and stuff, and I mean, I've got a few of his books. Like he's done like the science book and stuff like that, the rocket book on rockets, which is great. And I mean, he keeps putting out great stuff, and so yeah, I mean, it is really cool to kind of relive all that stuff. But yeah, so let's talk about, just, I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, AAA Discord and see, how that started. Cause I've played around with the idea of starting the Discord and everything, but I know just from joining AAA Discord and me not being that active on it, that I don't know. I've just got to either shift my mindset or maybe just realize that maybe that's not for me. I think for me, it comes down to, I'm much more comfortable just talking live with people rather than typing and and that type of, communication. So, but I don't know. I mean, I guess, can you give us a little rundown on the AAA Discord and kind of how it started and where it's at now?
Yeah, for sure. And like what really started everything when it comes to like, I had been doing my YouTube channel. I started it as for the hip hop stuff. Like the first video, I don't know if I still have it up there, but the first video is me like rapping on stage, and it's really cringy and stuff.
I think all of our first videos are really cringy,
yes.
and that's the thing you talked about. And we'll get back. We'll definitely we'll move back around to what we're talking about. But you did mention like watching like Kevin Cross and those guys and how they sort of got better at what they were doing because you kind of saw them from the beginning. It's the same thing with YouTube, and anyone that wants to get into doing YouTube, I just say go. I don't take down my old videos, so if you want to go back and watch my first video, you will see kind of how cringy and how boring it is and how stiff it is, and when you do this, you and I have done this for quite a bit. We've had our channels for a while. You've had your channel longer than I've had mine, but you just see that you see us get better. I mean, it's so. Sure. But yeah.
It's really cool seeing everybody progress, and that's why I always try to start from the ground up and like encourage people in that, and I think I got that actually from the Art and Story in Jersey. He just was, everything was so approachable and yeah, you can do it too, type of thing. And so like I said, I started my YouTube channel and all that, but I went through different iterations, did a bunch of different things. Then I was just focusing on comics. And then again, Kevin Cross comes through with the 100 Days of Making Comics. And it's just like, that was another like,
yeah,
okay, this is how you make it happen. This is how you like get the juices going so you can actually be consistent at something with this comic stuff. And it freaking, for me, it works. Now, it doesn't work for everybody. For a lot of people, it has worked. And for me, it definitely worked. Even applied to other things too. But so through that, I did so many YouTube videos because, that was the thing, is do a video every day too. And so I did so many YouTube videos, and then I was trying to take it a little more serious. We got all different other people being part of it, and community built. So a lot of what I built is built off of what other people built, and eventually I got to know different people, and Chris McQuinlan was one of them. And he did this video called How to Start Your First Comic. And at that time I was studying YouTube, like, how do you make this YouTube thing work? And one of the things they said is like, look at your peers, the people who are doing similar things to you, and what works for them. Do the same exact video, but you do it your own way. You don't like copy them, but you can copy like kind of the title and the idea. And I was like, oh man, his video is really popping off with that one. So I'm like, well, what could I do that's different? Because his video is so good. It's like, it just goes through from point A to Z. Like it does the whole thing, how to start your comic and make it happen. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be able to do that, but, what I can do. And I thought like, well, how did I start doing this? Like what helped me to start? And the first thing I thought of was, oh, well, mini comics. Like I did, that's what got me going, in 100 Days of Making Comics. So basically I laid out the problem. Like, it's so hard. And I think that's part of why it resonates with people, is like, I just laid out the problem. Like, it's so hard to make this comic thing work. And you get so discouraged. There's so many things you need to learn and this and that. And then I go into, well, this is how a good way to start for anybody. Anybody can approach this. You can do with whatever materials you have, paper, pencil, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like anything that you can find, you can make a comic. It's possible to make a comic. Just do mini comics, start with your first mini comic. It doesn't have to be good. It won't take as much time, all this stuff. So I just laid into that, on that video, doing the same thing that Chris did, but in my own way. And it worked. It blew up. It took a few months before it caught on, but it's still, to this day, it's like definitely like the most viewed video, and I get comments every day. And so through that, I kind of, another thing that the YouTube people tell you to do is, like, if you get a hit, like, now repeat that somehow.
Yeah.
Like, don't do the same exact video necessarily, but do offshoots, things that are related. And so I started doing, I did the 1 hour comic challenge, and that was a pretty big hit. And then I did, the level up sketchbook, and that was pretty big. And what I found was, I was finding what my voice on YouTube is basically helping people right where they like at the most basic level. Like when I was a little kid and I first read my first comic, and I'm like, I want to try to draw comics. Like, that's kind of who I'm talking to, or anybody else who's just starting, because it's such an overwhelming task. And so that was just like, I was like, okay, I can do that, because it's not like my skills are like amazing. So I'm not going to be able to teach them like how to draw like Jim Lee or something like, so, but I can at least teach them how to get started, and different iterations of that, and inspire people. So because those videos were what took off, then it was like a community started building around that. And then it was like, well, how can we like enhance this and make this even more of a community, and make this more of a thing that I could even help people even more. And at that point, everybody was doing, oh, check out my Discord, this was like when Discord was really starting to, it was already a thing for gamers and stuff, but it was starting to be for everybody was starting to do Discords. And I'm like, what's this Discord thing, blah blah blah. But basically what Discord is it's a forum. It's just like the old school forums. Like, we had a art and story forum, and I loved being in there. We talked, that's where I got to know you a little bit, and other people a little bit, and so I used to love forums, and people still use forums to this day. But it's surprising, you can actually find some pretty active forums still. But now it kind of seems like Discord's taking that place, and it's kind of like a forum on steroids. Like, you could do a whole bunch more, and you don't have to know like PHP coding, whatever stuff to create it. You just go to Discord and you set one up. And so it's pretty cool, and it's actually really cool, and it really got going, and through the videos, like, people were into it, and there was a community. And then I had a few members. I mentioned Peter Seckler before, and there's a bunch of other members who were just like super active. But Peter Seckler's like one of the big ones, because he was like knocking out comics left and right. And then he started like doing, like, wanting to do these anthologies. And anytime somebody had like their own like challenge or their own like idea, like, I would say, yeah, why don't we make like a whole new section just for what you're doing? And so we would do that, and really it took on a life of its own. People came from my videos because they wanted, a community. But when it comes down to it, even right now, it's not even really my Discord anymore. It's really, it's really like the people who are moderating it, and I kind of watch over, sort of. But I feel like I'm a member now of it, and I don't really, I just go in there and do the same thing that every other member does, and it's fun. It's a blast, and I'll be honest, I'm not like super active in it anymore, but I might be getting more active. It's just because I had these life situations and all that stuff, and I kind of took a break from comics. Now I'm getting back into comics. I've been doing videos again, and I'm working on a comic right now, and I have a bunch of other ideas. So, I'm kind of getting back into it, but yeah, it's been a great place for a community to thrive, but there's other ways to do it. And I would agree that if you've been on there and it didn't resonate with you, like, you don't necessarily need to do it. There's other ways. I think you have a Patreon, Scott, right? If I'm
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. And
Great way to
Galen
do
just
it.
posted that you can, and we just did also really quick. Dee Dee left us a super chat. Great to see Marshall and Scott on the same
Hey,
stream.
Dee Dee, how
Yeah.
you doing?
I mean, we've been trying to make this
Hello,
happen for a
Art.
long time. So I don't know if you just joined us, Dee Dee, but we were talking about how just because, Marshall's on the East Coast and he's usually has to work in the morning, it usually can't happen. We're a little bummed that Josh is out of town and Corey he's actually in the hospital, which I was really surprised to see that he did chime in on the chat. So at least we know if he's in the chat, then things are at least going okay. I think he's just in there for observation. So the thoughts and prayers go out to Corey, but I think it sounds like he must be doing okay. But thanks, Dee Dee. We really do appreciate that super chat. And it's great to have you on the show. I know we did it a little earlier just to get Josh on. So, to get Marshall on. So, but I was going to go back to Galen was talking about how you can pair your Discord up with your Patreon, which I haven't done yet. If I ever do, eventually I do plan to do a little more with my Patreon, but I'm kind of building the new studio, and I just got brought dinner. So, so I'm building a new studio and everything like that. And once I get everything set up the way I want it, then I definitely going to really do some. I'm going to kind of go hard on Patreon and everything like that, and hopefully have a chance to add a Discord to it. Maybe I'll finally start doing something in that regards. But I do for now anyway. I definitely I refer people to AAA Patreon or AAA Discord all the time because, people are out there. They ask me in the comment section, I'm looking for like a comic community, and that's a really, really good one. So I know I'm not as active there, but I am a member. And I just see there's great stuff going on in there, and there's tons of channels in there. So that's usually where I point to people now. So,
That's cool. That's cool.
yeah.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's been a very positive community, and there was times where I was like super active in there, and now I just kind of, I'm casual. I'm a casual lurker.
Yeah. So I want to go. The topic is kind of, remembering where you started. We did kind of dive into that a little bit, but because you do so many different things, and we talked about how it kind of all goes back to comics. But one of the things that I always like to say is, I mean, if you're into music, if you're into hip hop, if you're into, toys or whatever, I mean, those can all be brought into your comic. And I mean, a lot of your comics do have sort of that hip hop theme, like Glyph or whatever. So, I mean, why? I mean, it's not like, I know you've kind of changed your focus along the way, and like I said, it kind of, and your channel and the focus of your channel, but it does seem to always go back to comics. But of course, I mean, I know my next comic that I have planned definitely has a hip hop theme to it. Once I wrap up Young and the Dead and everything. So I mean, we can take those interests we like and incorporate them into our comics. So there's nothing really saying that we can't do it all and incorporate those into comics. So how much thought have you given to that, as far as, I mean, and then you can make a hip hop themed comic, you can make a soundtrack that goes along with it, you can, and I'm very much, like we talked about my Young and the Dead, I'm very much into the packaging of things. If you saw my not just the regular floppy issues, but I usually put out, I don't know if I'll do it this time around, but usually I put out like an artist edition, and it's a little more handmade and everything like that, because I really like that tactile feel, and I like just creating things like that, and I like kind of combining things and making an experience that you can kind of open, so, and I think I would love to do some kind of musical tie-in. I'm not a musician by any means, but if there's some way I can pull that off, I'd love to bring that into comics. So I don't know, you have any plans as far as things like that you're thinking about, as far as the future of the comics you're doing and how it relates to some of your other interests?
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is I that's kind of how I started, with making comics. Glyph is a graffiti artist, whose art comes to life, and that was the whole kind of thing. Was I'm like, well, I'm into hip hop and comic books. I think I either had a website or wanted to have a website called hiphopandcomicbooks.com, but that now I'm not trying to like merge it like that anymore exactly, but like all my influences certainly come together. And the reason why I kind of mentioned like this topic when you asked was this is where I'm at right now. Like I'm like reevaluating like what am I doing with this stuff now, because I took a break, and I'm still trying to find my footing a little bit. And you know, I'm like, well, let me think about like what really got me started. And I kind of went back to the Rob Liefeld comics and the Image comics. Like I loved all those guys, Eric Larson, McFarlane. Like I know like there's plenty of controversy around all these artists, especially Liefeld and things, but honestly, like when it comes down to it, when I go back and look at the old X Forces, the old Young Bloods, the old Savage Dragons, and Spawn and Spider Man and X Men and all those things that I was into at that time, I get excited again, and I remember what it was that like made me excited, about comics, like. And I know that like the stories weren't the greatest, and I've always said this, like I want to do like comics that look awesome and are awesome stories, like, and that's been done by plenty of people. I think Robert Kirkman coming in, he kind of brought like a really cool new life back to Image, because he was inspired by that as well, but he's also a pretty good story writer as well. Like reading Walking Dead is a great read, and Invincible is really cool too. And the I've only read so many. He's done so many different ones, but you know, so I'm thinking about that because I'm like, all right, now since I first did my first mini comic, I've done a bunch of other comics like anthologies. The Attack of the Lizard
Yep,
Brain. You
that's what
have
we
that
used for the
cover
thumbnail.
and stuff like, a bunch of different stuff. And like when I think about those stories, like they're all like one of them's like a sci-fi superhero, like my star weird version of Star Wars. One of them's like a horror comic, but it's really just like this after school special bully thing, which is that's the Lizard Brain one. There's all these like odd things. The first time I actually made a superhero typical comic, one of the last I did, which was Expando, and it's just kind of a different take on, the Plastic Man or Mr. Fantastic type of idea, but like I never really like Glyph was kind of my first attempt, and in some ways he's almost like a superhero in a way, even though it's more like on an indie style thing. But I never really tried too much to like literally do the kind of comics that inspired me, like the exciting like teams and superhero type stuff. And I've had some ideas. The closest thing I got to it was Peter Palmiotti's in here in the chat. When I kind of stepped away from comics, I was in the middle of working on the comic Big Wrath, that him and I kind of developed, and he was going to ink and I was going to pencil. And at this point, that's kind of, I don't know if that's ever necessarily going to be a thing or not, but like, I'm trying to like dig back into my roots and like, what comic do I really want to make? And I just did a video 2 days ago with Peter Samedi of Alternate Comics.
Yeah, I watched that today. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like doing King Cryptid, and when I hear him talk about King Cryptid, I'm like, that's it. Like this is like that what he's doing is what I want to do. Like I want to do something that kind of has a story engine that has a lot of potential to be a lot of different things and is just exciting and fun, and I could tell a lot of stories with. And and he also has this whole thing he talks about when he publishes a work, he's looking for somebody to create a story that they need to tell. Like he wants people to give him, he wants to publish stories from people that they need to tell. And so I'm like, well, what is that for me? Like I'm all over the place. Like I don't know if I have a story I need to tell. I have a bunch of ideas of how to approach comics. I'm inspired by a lot of things. One of the newest inspirations for me is manga comics, and not only the actual comics, but also what they do in the Japanese culture with comics. That's super inspiring to me, So I have a lot of ideas. I'm also excited about abstract comics, which is never probably going to get any kind of leverage or anything, but I can't help it. Like that's kind of stuff I'm into at the moment. But, so it's like I'm trying to gather all my influences and figure out my next move, and now I'm kind of curious, actually. I'm sure everybody in the audience who watches the show knows more about it, but like you're saying, is this fifth issue the final?
No, it's I
issue?
guess you would say penultimate. So there'll be one more issue after that, and it'll be a little larger than normal. But this one definitely has a big reveal, and then everything will wrap up in the sixth issue, and then that'll be it. And then and who knows? As long as it takes me to do these, because it's like I think Corey, was it Corey who asked me before? How long I've been working on this comic, and it's been a long time because Mini Comics Dump Truck. I mean, I don't know how many years ago that was, but it's only 5 issues. So, but it's not. It's I do a lot of other stuff. I'm a professional artist, and the comics don't. They aren't a big income earner for me. I think once I get the whole book complete, when I get the story complete and I do a trade, I think then I'll really focus on marketing that, and I think I can make that profitable at that point. But it's just kind of, again, comics for me are a love of mine, and as I as you continue to launch these Kickstarters, eventually hopefully I'll get to the point where yes, I can make make a good I can earn some money from those Kickstarters, but it takes a little bit of building that audience and everything. So it's it's all I take it kind of all in stride and everything, but yeah, it's something that I do on the side. It is something I love to do, but it just takes me a while to get to it. So hopefully next time though, the next issue is already written though. That's the one thing that's a little different this time around. Whereas before I wrote each issue. I mean, I've got the overall story. I've always had the basic story, mapped out, but typically I write an issue at a time, but I wrote issue 5 and 6 together. So the whole story is written. So hopefully the next issue will go a little quicker because I won't have to take, it's already written. So it's just a matter of getting down and drawing. And then who knows, maybe I do another 100 days of making comics, or maybe I just do that on the side and work on in the spirit of it and work on my comic every single day. And kind of that's what I was doing with the previous issue. So, but I am looking forward to, once I get this thing funded and out to everyone, getting back to working on the next issue. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, yeah, it's taken a lot of time to get some of these issues out and things like that. But like you said, you've done so many other things. You've done anthologies and stuff too. And like, and also there's a consistency there, background consistency, and also the consistency of the product too. And like, I mean, there's a lot to be said for the fact that you've done 4 issues and you're going to, I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that, come hell or high water, Scott Serklin is going to finish this series, and probably move on to something else, and it's just I feel like there's so many of us who are trying to make comics, and a lot of people haven't published anything. I can say I've at least published some anthology stuff in mini comics, but I haven't published a full-size comic yet. And so there's a lot to be said for even creating 4 comics in the time you have, so I don't know. I got nothing but respect for what you've done with that,
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So let's see. So we've got a little idea, I mean, of where you're headed with the comics and everything that you're doing. And So I'm curious what kind of what brought you back to well, I mean, I know some of that, and some of that I know you don't want to go into, but just following you for so long and knowing you always kind of come back to making comics, and I know sometimes you've kind of left YouTube and then you come back again, but it seems like you definitely have this renewed enthusiasm towards comics, and now you're putting out content on a regular basis and everything. So what was the impetus for bringing you back to doing comics and everything?
Well, like I said, when it comes down to it, comics is like my first love,
Yeah.
The earliest thing I can remember that is somewhere in that realm is I remember when I was like even before kindergarten, like I had like these Scooby-Doo picture books and stuff, and I would take those picture books, and I always drew. I drew from like, I mean, kids draw, but like I was doing more than the typical kid, and like, but I would have those Scooby Doo things, and I would write. I would try to write the words. I didn't know how to write words yet. I didn't know how to spell or read or anything, and I would try to write the words. And I would tell my mom, "I'm like, I'm writing a story." Like I knew even then, like I wanted to like. There was something in there that wanted to like write a story, but the thing is like, yeah, comics are like kind of like a first love, and I don't think I'll ever fully get away from it. There's just, I think the thing for that is the potential is what intrigues me. And I've actually heard that from a bunch of other creators recently. Like that's a lot of times why creators get into it, because there's still, and I think for a very forever, like maybe there will always be like this untapped potential in comics. Like some things have been tapped, like before, the Dark Knight Frank Miller thing came out, there wasn't anything like that. Once there was everything was like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like there's always these new plateaus that we're getting to, and there's a bunch of things that I see that haven't been done that I want to do, or at least try to attempt to do. And I don't know, I love the idea of creating stories. Like sometimes I try to make illustrations for illustration's sake, and I always come up against this thing where it feels like there's not as much meaning in it, and this is just me, that not everybody's like this, but like it's like just a single image, it's not, I need it to have a story or something.
Right. Right.
For some reason that story element kind of drives me, and yeah, I don't know, there's the thing that how I kind of, to kind of more answer your question, like how I kind of went away from it. Like I went through a life event that like really just was tough and stuff, and because of that, it kind of threw everything in my mind like off, and I had to kind of like recover, and because of that, um I had the itch to go back to music for a long time, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna like kind of hide myself in music for a while, and I was still trying to do the comics the whole time. I was still trying to get back to, I got to keep this thing. I got this YouTube going. It's going good. And, I got, these comics I've been making, and I was trying to hold on to it, and I couldn't make myself hold on to it. And eventually I just was like, you know what? I guess I just have to let it go, work on this, play around with this music. And what I learned, I started doing this modular synthesizer stuff. And, that's like, it's like inherently experimental, and you just like patch stuff and turn knobs. And sometimes, even though you understand how it works, you don't know what you're going to get. And then you always get like surprised by these like sounds and things that bloom. Like, it's just like, wow, I I knew what I was doing, but then something changed and I kind of got lost, but this sounds awesome. Let me record it. Like, and so I got into this experimental abstract type of stuff, and it was just a great way to just like, it was almost like a mental health thing. Like it helped me to like get into this mindset of just playing, basically. Like
Yeah.
it's really just the spirit of play. And so, I kind of had to do that for a while, and I had to not think about comics for a while. And then, I finally, like, I made an album, I did a few other things, and I scratched that itch a lot, and I got to that point, and I was like, it wasn't that long ago. It was like, a few months ago, where I was like, okay, I think I scratched that itch enough. I still have it. It's right behind me. I can go at it anytime I want. But I think I'm ready to do comics again, and I did a couple of YouTube videos, and I'm like, yes, this is my people. Like, I need to stay connected. Like, this is who I love talking to, and all that stuff. And then, so I immediately was like, well, I got to get the ball rolling somehow again. So I went to the AAA Discord, just
Yeah.
like I would suggest somebody else go to the AAA Discord, and I'm like, let's see, are they doing any anthologies? Like, let me just get in and get my hands, working on a comic somehow, some way. And they were doing, they're still doing anthologies. I'm like, cool. All right, what's the next one? I want to do it. So that's what I'm doing, and that's where I'm at right now. So
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned something that I wanted to touch on, and that was that spirit of play. Because if you watch your channel, if you go back and watch some of the videos, I just see a lot of that, a lot of experimentation, a lot of testing things out, and I think that's how we kind of discover where we want to be in the moment. A lot of, and that to be, and just a little something I'm thinking about is I mentioned that this new studio I'm building and everything, and one of the things that once that gets done, there's some content that I want to do in the YouTube that I have done a little bit of in the past, but I really want to get back to doing some of that. Some of the basically, I mean, I call the Circworks Art Labs, which leads you to think that there's some kind of experiments going on. And I do want to experiment with different medias and try different things out and building things and a lot of that kind of stuff. And I want to incorporate more of that into the channel. And I see you doing that all the time. And so it's kind of inspiring to look at, just that, like you said, that spirit of play, figuring things out, because I think experimenting with different things, it opens up new doors, and everything that you do from a point of experimenting, I think can be brought into like how you create your comics or whatever. Like you had mentioned abstract comics, which I'm not really familiar with, but I did watch some of your content on that, and it did look interesting and something I never really even known much about. So, but I like how there is this sort of just this kind of free experimentation and testing things out. And like the was it a 1 hour comic challenge you did? I mean, that I would like never even attempt to do that. And I think the first time you did it, you failed, but then you did it again and you pulled it off. So I mean, don't be afraid to try things out. If it doesn't work, I mean, you've learned something from that.
yeah, I mean, totally. And that's kind of what I learned from doing the music thing again. And it's like interesting how they both inform each other. And I mean, I can remember you did too with the werewolves and unicorns comic. Like, you definitely tried something that I was a little more on the experimental side and stuff, and I thought that was interesting. And so, like, with the music, the whole thing with the almost like generative processes and abstract processes. I created an abstract comic. It's kind of a weird thing. I mean, it's abstract, but like I put it on my webtoons, and it's just like I was like, all right, how can I use some of these processes that I used in music? And so what I did, I was like, okay, in order for it to be a comic, technically, I think the only thing it needs is like words and panels and characters. Like, at the base level, I feel like that's what it needs, Obviously story, but when you're dealing with abstract comic, like, is there a story? I don't know. But so I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do some weird, like, experimentation and Procreate, and I'm going to make the words be the borders of the panels. And then I'm going to just do portraits of people as the characters. And then like I did some stuff with color and stuff. So it's like the dialogue is in there, but it's actually, just this mishmash morphed thing or whatever. And it was just a fun experiment. And same thing, like different mediums and stuff. And when it comes down to it, there has been a history of that, even from Jack Kirby, you can see experimentation. He got into like cubism and stuff. And that's the Jack Kirby most people know is that kind of era where he was doing the more cubistic type of characters. And then, you think of like people like Bill Sienkiewicz.
I was just going to mention Bill Sienkiewicz.
The way he throws around ink is like no other, and there's many other examples. And it's like, like there's no nowadays the way, and I want to definitely do some of this stuff on my channel. Like nowadays, like the reason why we did comics in a way where you do pencils and then you do inks and there's all these steps and there's many people involved is because of the printing process. It's that they had to do it that way so that it would show up on the page and it would be easy to reproduce and all this stuff. But who says you even need inking? Who says you need pencils? Who says you need anything that they typically use before? You don't need that anymore. You don't even need anything but an iPad, you don't need anything but like you could make a comic with like finger painting or crayons and if you watch certain people, like there are certain people experimenting like that. Like one of the probably maybe the best like comic book YouTube channel is probably like Cartoonist Kayfabe. Like I take in that stuff like crazy, and like that dude Jim Rugg, both at Chris are doing some interesting things. But like Jim Rugg, like if like I have one of his Street Angel books, and there's anywhere from ballpoint pen to like colored pencils to like ink to paint. There's anything. Sam Keith, another great example. Like right now you can do like anything, if you want to, and call it a comic as long as it has story, has dialogue, has characters, has panels. Like you got some of those essential things in there, and I think you can call it a comic.
Hold on one second. We might have a surprise guest. I'm just sending the link out, so hold on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see Keith Harper talking about some people. Jim Mahfood. I love Jim Mahfood. I just bought a bunch of his stuff. Ashley Wood is great. Some of the other ones I don't know yet, but there's so many people.
Yeah. Hold on. You know what? Do I have another window open? Hold on. Yeah. Just a second. There we go. I had a window open. Sorry. I'm hearing echo, and then I hear you talking, and your lips weren't moving. So I opened up another YouTube window, but I opened that out. So I just sent a link. Oh, there he is. All right.
I don't know.
Live from Canada. Hey, Josh.
Hey, how's it
The
going?
bearded one. What's up?
Oh my gosh, dude. I'm in Toronto, so I'll show you just for proof, right? Check that out. Boom, Toronto. Wow. It's like It's all throughout Airbnb is awesome. So Toronto, the whole city. Wait. I gotta give you the full. Hold on. Okay, it's dark. It's dim.
Okay.
Chapow!
Nice.
Toronto. Anyhow, I'm here for TCAF, and how's it going, Marsh?
Hey, what's up, man?
I'm glad that worked. I just wanted to say hi and let everybody in the Artcasters know that I'm missing Artcasters because of comics.
Yes, that's the only excuse.
Yeah.
So hopefully you're going to do some. Say that again, Marshall, because I was talking over you.
Oh, I was saying good luck at the convention, man.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I will tell you though, I mean, so far I'm like blown away by just Toronto as a city, but that flight is brutal from Los Angeles to Toronto. But we'll see how it goes. Like, I'm really excited to meet, like, I'm hoping to like do maybe some video of it too. But like, I'm gonna be able to meet my editor, which is really cool, and like hopefully like make a lot of connections and stuff. Like, tomorrow is mostly like programming for librarians and stuff, and I'm gonna try to check it out and then maybe explore the city a little bit. So yeah, but yeah, I'm hoping it's good for, like, I'm hoping it's as good of a con as people have said, so all of us can come in full force and dominate this convention.
That would be great. I'd love to go to one that's a little more comic centric, you know, like a TCAF or a Mocha or something like that. So
yeah, I've heard about this one for like about a decade, and so I'm really excited about it because it's like, it's such a comic centric one that like they won't even let guests in that don't do comics.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And
yeah.
They had a big snafu this year where they tried to let somebody in who doesn't do comics. And
is that what that was about? Yeah, I heard you say something about
that's
that.
how it started. But yeah, it was like they were apparently tracing Jamie Hewlett.
Oh, okay.
And selling NFTs, and they were just like, none of that. Anyhow, so
well, that's cool. That's cool that there are still places out there like that, you know, there's a prerequisite that you create comics and everything. So yeah.
Anyhow, sorry for raining on your parade, and you guys
raining. No, it's great because I mean, I was talking to Marsh in the beginning of the show and saying it was kind of, you know, we finally got him on the show and it's just me, and I know Marsh and I have done shows before, so it's really not that different other than it's an official Artcaster show. But It's good that you were able to chime in, and then Corey, it's crazy, but Corey's actually in the chat. I don't know what he's doing.
Well, I guess he can type, he just can't talk or breathe.
Right, so, exactly. Yeah.
But we're wishing you the best, Corey.
Yeah.
Out there. You got to recover, man. And stop riding motorcycles. Like, both of those things can be true at the same time. Yeah. But Marsh, what time is it for you? Because I bet I'm on your time zone now, because it's like midnight here.
Yeah, it's midnight. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I've traveled to, like, I've done the time zone switch.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Which is not a big deal for Josh because he stays up till 3 a.m. anyway every night. But
yeah. I'm like,
yeah, I'm not used to this night owl stuff.
How's it been, Marsh?
Oh, it's been good, you know, getting back into the comics groove and the YouTube groove. So I'm having fun. I'm coming up out of the water and finding out, oh my gosh, people like Josh, they got Jacob's Apartment going on. They got all these comics, new comic working on. Scott's working on a new comic. You guys are crazy.
I also sent Malia a message saying that I wasn't going to let you in because I know you needed a rest, but here he is. I said he's going to attempt to come on. Okay, so now officially we have so Marsh gets the full Artcasters cast.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know how long it'll be before the nurses come in again because they've been in and out all night.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Did they say no streaming?
They didn't. They actually said, hey, that show you're watching would be better on our Wi-Fi. Let me get you set up. And I was like, well, if you guys have got Wi-Fi, I've got my laptop here.
Nice.
I'll try to.
Before that cough, I was going to say, actually, all things considered, you sounded pretty good.
Yeah. I've been better, but I mean, of all of the options, I was praying for this one. So this is, you know, like when they were like pneumonia, blood clots, cancer, acid spilling into your lungs. I'm like, let's go for pneumonia. Should we do that?
So, I didn't know how much you wanted me to mention. I just said that you were out sick, and then you popped in the chat. So I figured you must be okay if you're in the chat. So, but it's good that you got to fill everyone in.
We've all got to die
sometime. I'm glad it's not the latter. Again, like, Corey, you got to start doing autobio comics, man. You need to I want to see a Corey Kerr like graphic novel that's just like all the times I should have died. Like, it's just a long list of like all the times you've cheated.
I have 3 different doctors rule out pneumonia before the CT that I had this afternoon when they were like, immediately drive to the hospital right now. And I was like, what is it? They're like, it's pneumonia with a big giant abscess across it. And so they're like, it's not the type of pneumonia that we can just give you something for. So I'll have a minor procedure tomorrow. And that should work and I should be fine. I'm just happy that they're not like, you've been burning your lungs with stomach acid for.
Yeah, especially when they said you got to come in right now. Maybe lead with ease into that. Like we need to come right now, but it's not.
No, I was asking them questions like clarifying stuff, and they're like, "We can clarify things after you get to the hospital. This phone call is already too long. You need to get there right away." Right. And the city that I'm in doesn't have anybody capable of doing the procedure, so it was I had to go to the I had to go 40 miles down the road. So anyway, but it was fine. My wife was annoyed that I drove, but I like driving.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Did you drive your motorcycle to the hospital?
No,
I wish.
I think he wishes. I thought he was going to say he's done, but he still wishes. So
yeah, I think I will always continue to wish, but I think I might be done. I think without getting into too much detail, I think I vomited so hard 3 nights ago that I broke my ribs again.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's what kind of spurred me going into the doctor before I had planned. And then I was lucky. That was a blessing in disguise because I'm stupid and I just like wait things out. Yeah. If it doesn't stop me from doing things and I'm in my steady rotation of NyQuil, DayQuil, I'm still able to function sort of. And so I think it took re-breaking some ribs and then other things which I won't go into on the air just for the viewers. I don't mind sharing, but it's unpleasant. So anyway, they were concerned and they said, let's get a CT scan because nothing is showing up on the x-rays. And I've been x-rayed more than like I'm waiting to like Hulk out or like shoot lasers out of my eyes or something. I'm collecting x-rays at this point. So
yeah.
Yeah, I know you posted one of those and like I couldn't make heads or tails of it, but it looked bizarre. But
if you look on the side that has the titanium hardware on it, look at the ribs. None of them line up.
They're like this.
Kind of like all wonky. And they think that's probably the problem.
Wait, Corey, you have like a really rad light on your finger. You have to do some like force moves with that light.
Yeah, this is your lack of faith, Marsh, disturbs me.
So do they think you're going to be in there for a while, or it's like just do a procedure and hopefully you'll be back?
No one commits to anything in medicine, so no one has said, and everyone seems to be trying to pretend like this isn't a big deal. I think they have that tone in their voice where they're like trying to. So I don't know. Tomorrow they're going to take a big needle and go in through my back into my lungs and try to drain it. And if that works, then they'll watch me for as long as they feel like they need to, and I'm done. If it doesn't work, then they have to open it up and clean it up manually. So,
man,
I'd like to not do that because that's like chest surgery, which I'd like to avoid.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have to crack my sternum. I think they can kind of go in. I hope. I don't know. We'll see. Because if I have to heal my ribs again, I'm just really tired of healing my ribs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't take over the screen.
Get annoying after a while.
No, it is just kind of cool that you guys were able to pop in here.
It started to look like a party, and I was like really bummed. This is the first moment I've had. I keep having to mute, and I'm like, I really like Marsh. I was on his channel just a little while ago. Like, I gotta hang out with that dude more. I was really excited for tonight, and then dumb CT scan.
I know. So. I heard like that you and I see now I'm all self-conscious about pronouncing his name because I know Jeff pronounces his name one way. I think it's
It's Gibran.
Okay, so it is Gib.
Gibran.
Okay, good. Because I want to make sure I'm not getting it wrong and doing the Jeff pronunciation.
Gif,
But anyhow,
Jiff, Gibran,
I heard
Gibran.
like Gib and Jeff talking about him sending you tracks and you guys collaborating, and I was like, man, I gotta talk to Marsh because I love the music you've been doing too. It's really cool.
Yeah, that I forgot what you called it, but that it looks crazy, that machine that you got for making the beats and stuff. I mean, it looks really cool.
I gotta
Yeah.
connect you to my friend Jeremy, who's doing gigs in San Fran with the same kind of machines. I think you guys would really hit it off because it's like I have noticed that form of music, like you buy components and then it's like the first time somebody upgrades a body part to like an automated part. And then, like the next thing you know, they're RoboCop.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping to get them surgically put into my my body somehow. I want to be Cable, but for music.
I love it. Awesome.
And it all comes back to Liefeld.
Yes.
And that's the title. You know, remember where you started? And for Marsh, it all started with Liefeld, and he brought it back. So, that having said that, is there anything that we didn't touch on, Marshall, that you wanted to mention before we start closing the show out?
Not especially. I'm getting back into the videos and all that stuff. So I'm it's been fun doing that and reconnecting with everybody. I am trying to dig back into my roots. It's funny because I've been, listening to Rob Liefeld's podcast, it's really fun. And I watched, I was on Joshua's channel the other day and I'm like, oh, he's got a video where he's talking about Liefeld. I got to hear what he has to say. And that was very entertaining. So it's cool.
Yeah, I always feel like he gets a lot of hate, and if you're looking at it from the perspective of like somebody who's 20 years in drawing and stuff, of course it's going to be like, ugh, like if you look at like X-Force and stuff, but it's like, consider like, how did I draw at that age? Like when I was 17, I wouldn't have been working for Marvel, he was pretty incredible, and he set a tone and style. So anyhow, I also like that he's a little self-deprecating too, which I think is like, it's like what makes me like William Shatner too, it's like Shatner knows his weaknesses, but he's so likable because he just leans into it, so yeah, that's cool. I didn't know Liefeld had a podcast. Sorry, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, Robservations. I've listened to a couple episodes. It's pretty good. He's definitely got a good perspective. I mean, and as far as his his contribution to comics and I was never the biggest Rob out of the Image guys. He wasn't like my favorite, but he definitely, he's had an amazing career, and he's from a business perspective and just from a it's called Robservations for a reason. From his observations on the comic industry. The couple episodes I listened to were great. So yeah, definitely.
Well, he's such one of the biggest comic nerds ever. Like he knows so much about because he just absorbs it. Like even to this day, he still absorbs it. So, and he's got that energy, So it's like if you didn't ever see any of his art and just wanted to listen to somebody talk excitedly about comics, you'd love that podcast,
He hires a lot of really cool indie dudes too to like work on his projects. So it's like he again, like I agree with that, like everything that's been said. It's like I think people should give him another chance. I know he hides feet. We know all the other stuff, but it's like he's actually a pretty inspiring dude. I won't knock him.
It's okay if you do.
All right. Well, why don't we go around the room then, and everyone can pitch what their anything they have. We'll start with Josh because he's got something big to pitch right now.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm in Toronto. Tomorrow I'm going to be bumming around town a little bit and there's a couple events starting at the Toronto Public Library for TCAF, which I've never been to, but I'm going to go to them, and it's about like comics and libraries. And then Saturday and Sunday, I'll be at the Graphic Mundi booth. So if you're on this side of the country, and I've heard that like for people in like Buffalo, New York, or like that area, it's like not a super long drive. Even if you're not coming there to like see me or my work, if you like indie comics, like TCAF to me it was such a big deal that when my publisher was like, "We have a space there. Do you want to come?" I instantly was just like, "Yes!" Like yes, 100 ways yes. Like it's tons of indie cartoonists filling 5 floors of a giant library, and it's indie friendly and amazing. But stop by the Graphic Mundi booth and say hi, and get some books signed. I managed to get some comics, some copies of 2 stories with me as well. So there is a giant suitcase back there, that one back there, and it's just loaded top to bottom with 2 stories copies. So I'll be selling 2 stories as well. Or I shouldn't be saying selling. I'll have 2 stories copies available for you to peruse. So yeah. Anyhow, TCAF, make sure you guys check that out. And also, Marsh being back at making comics is huge news and very exciting. So I can't wait to see what comes. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, hopefully you get a chance to like take some footage or film some stuff while you're out there, Josh.
Yeah, I'll try. The problem with these cons, you might have experienced this too, Scott, but it's like quite often they're so fun you like forget to film.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I won't want to at least get some shots. I mean, the city is incredible. I couldn't believe it. You know, I don't travel a ton, so it's always amazing to me to go outside of LA and be like, this looks like there's parts that look like LA, and then there's a whole section like by where I'm staying that looks like the posh areas of like Orange County. It's really weird. It's just a weird city. And then there's like a giant needle that looks like the Space Needle, but like way more modern.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I always hear that people enjoy being in Toronto. I've never been though.
Yeah, I haven't either, but I'd love to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wish I could check out like a hockey game or something, but yeah, oh well. Next time.
So I don't know if Corey is up to, if he wants to mention anything.
I just want to mention the beautiful hotel art of this totally not cliche flowers next to the sunset.
Does it make you feel at peace?
Yes, I feel like I'm getting better just looking at it.
There you go.
So and I got a boardwalk where Josh is.
Go follow whatever hack artist made that garbage.
Yeah. True art.
Scott's got one too.
I think we can only aspire to make stuff to that level.
Some kind of village behind me. All right. Okay. And so Marsh, anything that you wanted to promote or let people know, anything that's coming out? I mean, you're working on something for AAA Discord. You want to pitch that or anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm working on it's going to be called the 9-Volt Anthology, The Uncanny Journey. So there's going to be a bunch of cool people from the AAA Discord on that, and I'll have a 4-page story in there that'll be out, I think, soon, like in a month or something.
Awesome.
And you know, Marsh Makes Comics, the YouTube channel. That's kind of the place to be if you want to check out my stuff.
Yeah, and there are links to both Marshall's YouTube channel and his Donkey Jaw Productions. Is it projects? I keep saying productions. Donkey Jaw Projects, website. So yeah, and I just want to thank Marsh again, finally getting him on, and it's great that these two decided to were able to show up. So that's great. That kind of made my night. So. Even Corey from his hospital bed. As far as me, you can find my stuff at circworks.com. I do have a Kickstarter that I'll be rolling out next month. So just be aware that that's gonna happen. I'll be letting you know a little more about that as we get closer to that. You can find all my stuff at on my website right here. I've got tons of videos and everything. But again, thanks to the chat. We had the chat was hopping. A lot of people in the chat tonight. So thank you for showing up. Thanks again, Dee Dee, for the super chat. We really do appreciate it. And And yeah, hopefully we get to do. Marsh kind of hinted that we might be able to get him. It might not be as hard to get him on the show. So I just told him anytime that he's available, where it's a time that works for him, we'd love to have him on. Because at first we were bummed that he wasn't going to be on with Corey and Josh, but look what happened. We made it happen. Yes. Dreams come true. All right, guys, we'll see everyone next week. Oh, I forgot to tell everyone. So the show that we do, Artcasters, we do this show every single week, usually on a Thursday, usually around 9 p.m. Pacific time. This time we decided to do it a little earlier. And so it can change, and also it rotates from Josh's channel and my channel and Corey's channel. But if you want to know exactly when we're going to go on, what day, who the guest is going to be, all that stuff, whose channel is going to be on, just join our mailing list. There's a link in the description of this video. Just join the Artcasters mailing list. We don't spam you. Usually what we do is about at least 30 minutes before we go live. We'll send out an email and you'll know where to click so you can hopefully join us live like all of the people here in the chat. So thanks again, and we'll see everyone next week. Later.